I've always loved the Eldar lore. Games Workshop have released all the brand new Aspect Warriors in plastic, and today I'm going to show you how to paint each and every single Aspect Warrior that they've released with a sponge. Obviously a year ago I painted a Striking Scorpion showing my first sponge painting video, but today I'm going to be painting one after the other. So this is probably quite a long video, I don't know yet, I've only just started recording. However, it's going to be broken up in each aspect that's been released. Excuse me. And I'll be showing you how I painted all of these with no airbrush, just sponges, washers, and a paintbrush. Now, some of the concepts will be repeated because we're working with Eldar, and some of the things are shared, like how to paint black and white and stuff like that. So the Warpspiders are going to be first, they're going to be the longest section, and then when I'm painting the Swooping Hawks and they've suddenly got a really cool helmet, it's probably because I painted it in a previous section. So you're going to have to watch the whole video to see how I did it. So if you didn't know, a couple of months ago on Instagram, there's a lot of drama about someone releasing a unique sponging tool, which are actually chip extractors that you can buy on Amazon. So I bought some of those, which were £7 for 3 of these chip extractors. And what you can do is they essentially have teeth inside them where you can like grab onto a piece of sponge and it'll hold it, so you can use it like a paintbrush. Because obviously you can hold a sponge, you can use tweezers. My hands start to ache after a while, and like people are using like end of paintbrush caps, but also these chip extractors are really cheap on eBay and not £45 in a Kickstarter. So I'm going to be using those to paint today, and obviously we're starting out with the Warpspider, and the 4 colours I'm going to be using today are Tooth and Coat, Sanguine Scarlet, Hellstorm Red, Demon Red, and Fanatic Orange, and these are going to be the bulk of the model. So I start out by putting them on my wet palette. I dampen the sponge. If you want to watch the full how to paint with a sponge painting, make sure you go and check out the sponge blob video, which was robbed from me, painting the Striking Scorpion. But starting out with that first red, the Sanguine Scarlet, and we've primed the Warpspider with Colour Forge Hyrax Brown, and the Colour Forge as well as the Outpost are powering this video. If you want to grab yourself some new Eldar, maybe you can pre-order them via the Outpost using my link in the description, because it's discounted and you also support me. And also, if you want the best primers known to man, if I tell you, you can use the link to grab some Colour Forge primers as well, and Hyrax Brown is my favourite when it comes to sponging. So starting out with our brown base coat, we're going to go in with the sponge tool, the sponge, on the model with Sanguine Scarlet, and just dabbing it all over the miniature. And the nice thing about sponging is that rather than like going in with an airbrush or painting it with a paintbrush, is 1, it's really quick, it's not too messy, so you don't need like a huge setup to do it, and 7, you also get like a really nice texture when you're applying it to the model, because obviously you've got the torn up texture of the sponge and then it's being pressed again, so you're essentially potato stamping, but on the model, because it's soft, it applies to the whole area, which is really nice. And obviously I've got the paint on my wet palette. You want the sponge to be damp, you want the paint to be like nice and thin. You don't want to like apply too much of it. That's why you see I end up stamping my hand to make sure there's not too much on there. But the thing is with it is it's really thin and it's really wet. Essentially you can't keep going over the same spot, or the sponge will just start absorbing the paint back off the model. So go over and do a layer and then hit it with a hairdryer, make sure it's nice and dry, you know, get that bad boy toasty so the paint dries and evaporates, and then go back in with the sponge with the same color and apply multiple thin layers. This is the same way as you would paint, but the only difference is the sponge. You don't really change any of the technique. You do have to apply multiple layers to get that like solid base coat. Well, not solid, but like high saturation base coat that we're going for a Warpspider. Once we're happy with the coverage, we start dabbing in. Don't need to wash the sponge, we just start dabbing into the Hellstorm Red and then start building that up again. And just while you're doing this, try and focus on the bits that are going to be like catching the light and the most raised edges. Don't try and get like right in between his crotch. We want to leave that quite dark. We'll leave that Hyrax Brown. We'll leave his crotch and his gap Hyrax Brown. But focus on the areas that you can see that are quite easy to get to and start building up this colour. And then if you think it's like too harsh of a contrast, if you're like, wow, that bit is Hellstorm Red and that bit is Sanguine Scarlet, and that's very different, just go and just like feather it in just by applying it on the line between, but like not quite as heavy, so you kind of get like the half and half. And the nice thing about the sponging, I can't remember the painter's name, but there's like the dot effect painting, which is really famous, and you're getting like a similar thing because you're blending the colors rather than like having like a smooth blend. You're having the dot effect. It's gonna like trick the eye to make it think like it's a gradient, but it's actually just different color dots getting more intense as they go on to the next color. But anyway, once you've done that, move on to the next color, Demon Red. Get some highlights there, and then with a little bit of Fanatic Orange on it, that's where you're going to focus on the really important bits. the back of the neck, the shoulder pads, the arms, the real high points, because this is obviously like a super bright color. It's not actually red. We don't want our model to look orange. If we did it all over, it'd look really orange. But what we're gonna do is just apply this as like a highlight technique. So focus on the interesting bits, make them stand out a little bit with a little bit of orange. And then you got yourself a Warpspider base coat. If you just want to do that, that is 90% of the way done. You can skip on to the Swooping Hawk and how I did that. But I'm going to paint the whole miniature. So what we're going to do now is going to start blocking out the black. We're going to do the gun black, all the ribbons black, etc. Because I'm just following the box art a lot of the time. But I'm doing a black carapace and then white in the middle instead of white all over. So I'm going to base coat all the things I want to be black, and I'm going to base coat all the things I want to be white, grey. The reason I'm going with grey is because white is terrible to paint with. So start with like a nice grey base coat, and then work your way up. I think this is wizard grey. So this is for these like mandibles and like little tassels and stuff that are coming off. And also I was looking at the red and I was like, the colour's really nice, but the contrast isn't quite where I want it to be. So I added a Hellion red wash all over. This is just the two thin coats red wash. I applied this to all of the armour, and then I neatened it up on the colours that aren't going to be red, like the grey and the black. Where I needed to. And then I was like, okay, cool, I've got contrast now, but now it's not as light, so I just went back in the sponge and just focused on those interesting points again, and just reapplied the fanatic / demon red mixture that I've got going on. Not super necessary, but it adds it really brings all the colours together, which is really nice. It adds like a layer of filter over the top, so we've got this like gradient dotty effect filter. Now we're adding like a layer of colour over the top, so then it looks like I've blended it. When I haven't, I hit it with a dish sponge for 20 minutes. Not even 20, it was like 7. So then for the black parts, I'm actually going to be doing a very similar effect. I'm obviously starting with matte black by the Colour Forge for the carapace. And I'm going in with a very watered down wizard grey and black. And then just doing the same thing. You're going to be seeing me use a sponge for a lot of this because I'm painting all of the aspects with a sponge, ironically. So I'm just going around the edges and just like applying a little bit of grey and then like drying it off, and then applying a little bit more. And I'm doing the same to the gun as well, because the gun is black. I don't want it to be flat black. I'm going to be applying grey on that as well. And I'm going to keep building up those layers, adding a little bit of more wizard grey. I'm actually adding a little bit of blue as well. I think it was Ray Gun Glow, the blue, because I'm trying to go for that. People don't paint black, people paint black blue that I did a few weeks ago, but I'm painting blue myself now. So it's kind of like the Thunderhawk turquoise vibe that I'm going for. That's what a lot of people use to highlight black. So I'm adding a little bit of that and just going around the edge and just like working my way in, you know? Start wide, work your way thin to the edges. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to start working on the whites as well. So obviously we've got this white circle that we're going to have. I'm using Trooper White mixed in with that previous grey that we just had to get like a darker colour. So it's kind of like a blue-grey white. And then we're working our way up to Trooper White. Trooper White is, in my opinion, one of the best white paints there is, but it's also great because it's not actually white. It's like creamy, bony. It's got like a bone-esque to it. A bone-esque. Yes, that's the real word. It's got a bone-esque to it, so you can actually still shade it, and then you can still highlight with white, and you get like actual light, like white star, I think they call. It's great. It's a really nice colour. So I'm just building my way up with that one, and then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to wash all of the grey black that we've done with black wash, Oblivion black wash. Again, we're doing the same thing on the red, right? It's like, oh, it's really grey now, so we actually need to like glaze it black. So I think I added a bit of black paint to this as well, just to make it like a bit more intense, a bit more intentional black wash. But essentially it's going to deepen all the recesses to make them look black, and then the top parts of the gun, the bits that are highlighted, are going to look more grey but still black. So then I'm going to edge highlight all of the black using the previous mix. So it's like, essentially, there's a thing at the bottom of the screen that tells you what colour I'm using. It's too long now, but it's like black, but then with wizard grey, but then with Ray Gun Glow in it as well, and then a little bit of Trooper White to make it like a light grey. The thing is, chat, is that if you don't have a paint, okay, you're like, well, I don't have like a light blue grey to highlight black. Just mix one. Just mix it. All right, don't hold back. Don't worry. Don't even think about it. Just mix the damn colour. All right. So I went around and highlighted pretty much nearly every edge with this colour, and then I went in and added a little bit more Trooper White into there. Went way too bright, but don't even worry about it. Don't even leave a comment about how bright the white is, and it looks like it's white, not black, because I went in and just darkened it down with the Oblivion black wash again. So don't even Don't even leave a comment about how bright that black was, okay? Don't even think about it. So then using that Fanatic Orange and Demon Red mix, I went in and edge highlighted all the red. The thing is with Eldar is because of the way their armor is, there's so many like cool sharp edges you can highlight, like on the arms and the shoulder pads and like the head and the chest plate. There's loads of cool bits, so you can just like really make your models pop. So you don't have to spend long on this point, but the longer you spend, the more they're going to be like, bam, like that, you know? Like, take as long as you like, you know? If you can't be bothered, don't bother, all right? It's still pretty nice already. If you really want to, the more you go to town, the better it's going to look in the end. So then, for any of the white parts that I've highlighted up to Trooper White, like the mandibles and the backpack, I'm using Nighthaunt Gloom contrast paint, watered down, and then just using this as a wash to get like a really nice blue-grey, because a blue-grey to white looks better than just white, okay? Promise you. And because it's a contrast paint, it's going to settle on the surfaces in a nice way rather than just using like a plain wash, like you could use like a blue wash or something, I don't know, but I wanted to use this because you get the aspects of contrast, because it'll settle on the surface and then it'll leave the edges brighter, so it like does a lot of the shade to highlight for you, which is great. So whilst that's drying, I'm just going in and painting any of the metallics Dragon's Gold. It's a really nice gold. Don't just paint, I didn't even highlight them, just paint it, bro. Just slap it on. And then any of the white parts, just go back in with your Trooper White, or white if you want to, and just go and highlight that too. And that's bulk of the figure done. I think it looks really sick, it looks really smart, it looks really sleek. But then we got to do the head, which I've obviously left off, right? And I primed the head separately using Tabletop Tactics Ashen Grey, also available at Colourforge. And you can get that using my link in the description, because then you help out me and the big spider. It's a Warpspider, and it's for the spider. Funny, I've always thought it's a very funny nickname. Like, why is he a spider? He's only got 2 legs. On that white, I'm using the same Nighthaunt Gloom watered down contrast paint to like wash all of. I'm doing all the heads at the same time because they're all the Die Avenger, the Swooping Hawk, and the Warpspider are white, so I'm just washing those down. And then because Ashen Grey is not actually white and it's darker than Trooper White, I'm using Trooper White on the sponge to just like highlight the main part, and then we get that really cool cool gradient that I keep going on about because it's with a sponge. Did you know these videos about sponging? Because I don't know if you haven't realized already, you've smoked too much. Now the problem is because I'm trying to paint, I've got loads of lights, everything looks a bit blown out, but essentially I've sponged it with Trooper White, and then I'm edge highlighting it with White Star. So just going around all the main ones, or like around the helmet, like these bits, well, I don't know, the M that they've got for their eyes, you know, like that bit, around the nose, up on the top of the helmet, wherever there's like a sharp edge, I'm just highlighting it with White Star. And then it's all out of focus, but I'm using Frostheart contrast paint to paint the eyes because I dotted those earlier with the White Star. So I'm using Frostheart paint to paint there, and then I'm going to give it a quick highlight with the white. And that's the helmet done. Then it's a case of gluing it on and also off-screen basing your models like the rest of your army, as the great Duncan would once say. If you wanted to know the way I base my Eldar, is Gorthor brown, washed brown, and then dry brushed like Terminator stone or a light bone colour. The Eldar rock, you dry brush that the same stone and then give it a slap of Skeleton Horde. Okay, that's how I'm doing the basing. We're not doing basing today. And then smother it in flowers. However, that's the Warpspider done, but I wanted to do some OSL on his gun, and then everyone was like, whoa, Mikey's gonna break out the airbrush. And I'm like, no, I'm doing that with a sponge as well. So I'm using the same blues I'm actually using on the Swooping Hawk, which is in the next section, to build up the OSL. So I'm starting with like the base coat and just like working from the end of the gun, and I'm like being quite aggressive with it so the blue gets everywhere to create the glow. And then I'm going lighter and lighter, focusing on the end of the gun, and again building that gradient, but that way. So if I'm holding the gun like this, how the old Warpspiders used to hold it, work our way that way, the brightest bit at this end, and then not at this end. So working our way through the blues, and then eventually white on the end, and then that looks pretty sick. I think it looks very white, but it looks very cool. So then we hit it with like the Frostheart contrast paint that we just used for the eyes, with a little bit of blue wash mixed in there. Just a quick one. Mix washes and contrasts together, you get a little bit of both rather than just one. If you didn't know that, now you know. You get deeper shaded recesses from the wash, but then you don't get the staining from a wash like you wouldn't with a contrast paint. So you get like, and it's like a glaze at the same time. It's banging. So I wash that all over, and then out of focus I draw some little squiggly lines on to represent the lightning, because it's, I don't know, it's a filament, is lightning. It's a 3D printing filament gun that shoots lightning. I don't know what it is. But then once you've highlighted it, that's your Warpspider done. And it's time to move on to the next aspect. It's the Swooping Hawks. So next up, we're going to be painting the Swooping Hawk. Now, not the meta choice right now, but still like an absolutely beautiful range of models. And this section is going to be a little bit shorter than the Warpspider because obviously the Warpspider is the first one, so I've covered every part of the painting process. So if you're wondering, like, oh, you saw they painted the black and you didn't show us how to paint the helmet, it's because it's in the previous section, okay? So watch a Warpspider one, you know everything, and then anything that's repeated is not repeated. But the 4 colours I'm going to be using for the Swooping Hawk is Doom Death Black, Sentient Turquoise, Curse Blue, and Raygun Glow from the Two Thin Coats range. I won't be starting with black, but I'm going to be mixing that with Sentient Turquoise for our first base coat with the sponge, because obviously Swooping Hawks have like, there's like Swooping Hawks and Avengers, which are both blue, but obviously Swooping Hawks are more turquoise, which is, I don't know why I said it like that. Why did I do that? They're a more turquoise tone, and I think turquoise sponging is really, really nice. I actually did something very similar for my Tomb Kings on the Khemrian War Sphinx and the shields and stuff. It's just like a really nice colour to sponge from brown, I think. And the only downside, we start with brown. We obviously have the wings to deal with, but I'm going to be painting those grey later, so don't worry about it. Just follow the same steps that I did before. But yeah, the turquoise on brown is really nice. And I'm just hitting all of the armour all over with that first colour, and then we're going to move up to just like Sentient Turquoise, just focusing on the higher points, working our way up through these 3 colours. And I think when sponging, you're kind of wanting to go for this patchy effect. I mean, you can go for like solid base coats with the sponge, don't get me wrong, but the benefit of the sponge is because you're going for this like patchy effect, and you kind of like, it's better to start the base coat with a larger sponge and make the sponge smaller as you go on, because you're not going to be able to hit as large of a surface area, which is going to make you focus on the bits that want to be a lighter colour, but you'll also get this nice like gradient of the dotted gradient, which is super nice. So I'm having the 4 colours on my palette, and I'm working my way up each one, not really washing the sponge, but I'm tearing little bits off here and there and just building it up to this like super nice bright blue. And I think that is like the perfect Swooping Hawk colour. You could go for something a little less saturated, but I like the brightness of Eldar. That's kind of like why they're the Painter's Army, right? It's because they're just like super bright. And then you can even add a little bit of Trooper White into the Raygun Glow, the final highlight. If you want to go really, really bright, it's up to you, you know. I'm not your mother, all right? Do what you want. And then I'm using the blue wash. I think it's called Tempest Blue Wash. All over, just again, to add that glaze, to add that filter over the miniature, over all the blue to make it like blend together, which is really nice. And then because we've darkened it down, I'm going to go back in with the Raygun Glow and just highlight all the edges. As I said, Eldar armor has loads of sharp edges on it. Ironically, it's very slender, but all the details on the armor have really sharp edges, which is cool. So it's just a case of going in, focusing on those edges, highlighting them with Raygun Glow or Raygun Glow and Trooper White or whatever. Again, if you haven't washed it, you could probably just go in with like maybe even like almost white, but I washed it, so I've dulled all the colours down a little bit. So I'm just going in, highlighting in the focal points, focusing on like the chest area and then like the front of the legs and not really like the behind him. And like I said with the Warpspider, the more that you highlight, in my opinion, the better it looks. You can stop whenever you're ready, but the more you do, the better it's going to look. So just go to town, and then when you're fed up, just stop. Just move on. It's fine. Obviously, a large section of the Swooping Hawks is the wings. On the box art, they have yellow and blue. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do them white like I did. So start with the grey, building up to Trooper White, using our Nighthaunt Gloom, going in with the sponge with the Trooper White again to highlight, and then painstakingly highlighting every single fucking feather. It's an absolute pain in the arse, but worth it. I was painting these and I was like, man, this super dot looks so good. And then I was like, man, I need to paint another 4 like this to actually use them. Me. The rest aren't having the wings highlighted. So I painted the helmet, the gun, and all the metallics the same way as I did on the Warpspider, and then obviously the Swooping Hawks have green, so I used like Aeldari Emerald as a base coat and then highlighted that up with just bright greens, can't remember their names. Doesn't matter, just use the bright green, that's the same. Lime green, all right? That's what I'll call it, it's lime green. And then for anything that's yellow, I've painted that with the grey, the same grey I used to highlight to the white, and then I used Imperial Fist contrast paint just to paint over that. And then I gave that a quick highlight with Craven Yellow, which is the lightest yellow that Two Thin Coats has, and just gave that a quick edge highlight. Did the base the same way, stuck on some flowers, and there we go. We've got a beautiful looking Swooping Hawk. Oh, fire, right? You know what else is fire? X-Arc with double guns. They fire all the time. You thought I was going to say Fire Dragon. I didn't. That's next. So next up, we've got the Dire Avengers. Now, obviously, the Dire Avengers didn't get updated, but on the right base, they do look the part. And I've got this box from 4th edition. Did you know that these are the same models but these came in boxes of 10. That's a fun fact about Games Workshop. So the Die Avengers are going to follow a very similar process to the Swooping Hawks, but obviously a slightly different blue. So we're using Doom Death Black, Abyss Blue, Witching Horror Blue, and Gigawatt Blue. This is more like a ultramarine type tone rather than turquoise. Poster boy blue. So starting out with the Abyss/Black mix, going all over the miniature, going to town on it, be careful because it's the Exarch, so he's got a back banner this time. But I do think blue over brown is just the best way to do blue. I don't know why, I don't know the maths behind it, I don't know the color theory behind it, but it looks really good. I really like it. So once we're happy with the overall base coat, drying in between coats when we need to with the hairdryer, we can start building up the colors up to the brighter blues that we're using. And then again, the final highlights, focusing on the chest, the knee that's sticking forward, the shoulders and stuff like that. And I will say for the Die Avengers, obviously they don't come with basing bits, but Goonmaster Games make really nice 3D printable bits. They're not sponsored the video, they're just a really cool company. And these really make the models stand a little bit taller. Obviously the Die Avengers stand taller anyway because they've got massive heads, but it makes the feet look more dynamic rather than just being like... So there you go, there's a fun fact. And again, I'm using the same blue wash. I'm using Tempest Blue wash all over the miniature to shade all the recesses, to add that filter, add that layer over all the sponge just to like bring it all together. And again, this is where you can kind of see like the Die Avengers, even though one of the oldest kits that Eldar have now, they do still stand up really nicely. So again, with this Die Avenger, because it's similar to the Swooping Hawk, once I've washed it, I'm going to highlight it using that lighter blue. I think it's Ray Gun. Gigawatt Blue. So using Gigawatt Blue to highlight this Die Avenger. And a lot of it's the same process. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Like I said the last 2 times, the longer you highlight, the better it looks. So do as much as you like. And then it's just a case of painting the details like we did before, using Dragon's Gold on the gold, painting the black, and then sponging it, and then washing it. And then obviously the back banner and the tabard, I'm going to be doing the same white. So I'm going to be sponging it up to Trooper White, adding the Nighthawk and Gloom wash, and then highlighting him once again. The difference with the Die Avengers, I'm using purple for the Spirit Stones and stuff. So I started off with the purple contrast, Leviathan purple. And then I highlighted them up using Amethyst Rain and then Sorcerer's purple. God, remembering all the paint names is so hard. You paint 4 different models. And obviously with the helmet that I painted already multiple times, so I just followed the same steps, Swooping Hawk and the Warpspider. I painted all of the brush, the hair with Imperial Fist yellow, because it's a really nice yellow colour. But what's weird with Imperial Fist yellow for a contrast paint, it doesn't actually have a lot of contrast. It is more like a glaze, to be honest. So then I used Cassandra yellow, the wash, to give it like actual contrast. It's so weird, like there's a couple of contrasts from the newer range, Wave 2, like Imperial Fist Yellow, which is like, it's a contrast paint, but it doesn't do the contrast thing, it just paints yellow. So, Cassandra Yellow to add that nice warm yellow tone to it. And then I used the black that we've been using, Doom Death Black with some Wizard Grey in it and stuff like that, to paint on the stripes. And I didn't really think about it, I just kind of went, what looks well spaced out, and I just lightly painted one side, and then I just connected them straight over. There's not much to say, right? Just paint some black. Just be really neat with it. Just take your time, okay? I'd recommend doing the stripes on one side first, so then you can see how it's going to look, rather than doing like a full up and over, because if you realize you made a mistake, it's a lot harder to fix than if it's just on one side. So, and then once you stick his head on, obviously I painted the eyes the same color as the gems. We've got ourselves a Die Avenger, baby. Next up, Mikey, what are you doing? Why have you started with Reliquary Red by Hellstormwargaming along with the Colour Forge rather than Heinrich's Brown by the Colour Forge? Because we're going orange now, it's time for the Fire Dragon, the meta pick. That's why it's at the end of the video. So starting with Reliquary Red rather than brown, because obviously orange is a lot harder colour to paint than the previous ones. So it would have been nice to have them all brown, but obviously starting with a red, the colour is just going to stick way better, because oranges are notoriously bad for sticking onto paint. And by sticking, I mean kind of like, orange is kind of like painting with no primer, but with a primer. And obviously I've glued the head onto this miniature, but obviously I'm going to be doing that yellow. But what we can do is we can paint it all orange and then go and do the yellow afterwards. So we're going to be using Fanatic Orange, Orange Flare, and Flaming Forge Orange. Now, as you can see, as I'm sponging this, the colour isn't applying very well, because as I said, orange is I don't know what it is about orange pigment, it's just terrible. So this is going to take a lot more layers than we used before. So apply a nice heavy coat, let it dry, go again, let it dry, go again, let it dry, go again. And it will eventually look orange, as you can see with this one. It looks really like washed out because over the red, because obviously we're going from like a dark color to a light color with it, and it's a crap light color. But if we just keep working our way, I'm just doing Fanatic Orange. I'm doing like 4 coats of it this time. And you can see that jump. That's from like 1 coat to like 4, okay? It goes from like really dull to, oh my God, that is orange, all right? And then we're using onto our next orange, doing the same thing, using this as a highlight, but focusing on the helmet as well, because obviously we're going to be painting this yellow, and I'll explain why we're doing this in a minute. But if you keep painting all of the miniature orange, that's going to be orange or yellow, and then focusing on the edges as we get lighter and lighter, because this orange gets like less and less saturated. It looks more and more just like pastel. But that's the last one. The Flaming Forge orange is the last one, and we're going to stop there. But trust the process. We're going to move on to the yellow now. We're going to go back to the orange in a second. And for the yellow, I'm using Skulker Yellow, Yellow Flame, and then Craven Yellow. Again, Craven Yellows are going to look pretty pastel as well. So we're going to do a couple of tricks on this to bring it back to like really saturated. But we're going to paint this all over the helmet. And the reason we went with orange is because obviously we went with red for the orange, because orange doesn't stick very well to darker colors. And the same is with yellow. So what we can do is use the orange as our undertone before going over with the yellow. So then that becomes our shadow rather than it being a red shadow, because then it blend together. So we're just following the same process, but because the helmet is so big, I clipped the banner a little bit, and it doesn't matter too much, we can just fix that. But like by focusing it on the helmet, we've got plenty of space to get around. You can do this separately if you wanted to. You can even prime the helmet a different color, but I built the Fire Dragon first, and I was like, yeah, that'd be a cool way to show off like the sponging, that you just build up a better base coat for the yellow and then apply the yellow over the top. And I'm even doing the same on the back banner as well. I'm just using a sponge to base coat that as well. And as you can see, we've got a Fire Dragon. It just looks really pastel-y, okay? It looks crap, right? Magmadroth Flame. Like I just said with Imperial Fist in the preview on the Die Avenger, Magmadroth Flame, orange contrast doesn't contrast. So orange contrast with a little bit of Hellion red wash. Okay, we're going to apply this all over the miniature. Bam! That's a Fire Dragon if I ever saw one. Look at it. Look how saturated it is. It looks so good. So just paint this all over the orange. It looks amazing. Look how cool it is. It's so sick. You can see it's orange, but you've got that shading. You've got the red in the recesses, which is obviously going to make the Magmadroth Flame look darker. But then you're adding all that saturation and you're doing the filter. It's all in one. It's great. So normally I would like to wash it, but there's no real good orange wash that'll do what we want to do. Magmadroth Flame is a contrast paint, but it's essentially an ink because it doesn't contrast. So using that with a little bit of red wash, we're getting the best of both worlds, you know? We're doing the same with the helmet, but this time using Iyanden Yellow. The reason I'm using Iyanden Yellow is because that is a contrast. If I just went, I could go over with Imperial Fist like I did a minute ago, but it doesn't have the depth, you know, it's just a flat colour. So using Iyanden Yellow, you get the orange tone of the shadow, which is going to tie it well with the orange armour, but also it's going to like really pump the saturation of that yellow, and it's going to look really sick. And I think it does look really sick, to be honest. So then all the things you've already seen painted have been done in the previous sections, like the black and the gold, but then I'm just highlighting it using that Flaming Forge orange again, like Fanatic. I think I put Fanatic orange with Flaming Forge and like a nice mid-tone for the highlights. Again, highlight the edges. And then I did the same on the helmet with Craven Yellow, so I highlighted all the bumps, all the edges and stuff like that. As you can see, you've got like a really nice contrast up from like an orangey yellow through a mid-tone yellow, and then like a really bright yellow for the edges. And I think Fire Dragon is the best one I've done. I think it's my favourite, which is ironic because they're the strongest unit in the Codex as of next week. So then I'm just adding a little bit more white to the yellow and a white to the orange and just highlighting it again. Again, the more you highlight, the better it looks. Just keep going until you're bored or you're fed up or you think it looks good. If you make any mistakes, you can use the Magmadroth Flame or the Iyanden Yellow to kind of blend it back out again. Kind of like smother it a little bit, like pillow over the face type smothering. I don't know what I'm saying. And then it's going to paint the other details. So I painted all the tassels on the Fire Dragon red using Sanguine Scarlet, and then Demon Red and Hellstorm Red like I used for the Warpspider, but it's still on my palette. And then I used the same to like paint the back banner. I think I got the colours wrong on the back banner, but I ended up liking it because what I did was painted it, got the Dragon Gold, and then I painted the back of it red, and then I painted the flame separately. And it's just a case of highlighting the red, as I said, with Hellspawn Red or something similar. And then for the gems on the Fire Dragon, I did these blue using the Dire Avenger colours. So using those, a few blues to go through and paint those. And then with any of the gems, the trick is kind of like to highlight them really bright, but then go over with a wash or a contrast or similar, and that'll like bring all the colours together. Again, it's this thing that I keep saying that I think people I think I can't like state it enough. It's kind of like the filter over the top, you know. The reason things look good when you wash it all over is because you filter it, because you're adding like a layer to bring all the colours together, and you can do that and pinpoint it on like jewels and spirit stones and stuff, and that just like really brings them out because the wash settles on the recesses and it looks way deeper than it actually is. So yeah, if you followed all those steps, also it's been a week and I got a haircut, you'll have some Aspect Warriors that look like this. I know this video isn't quite long compared to normal, but I'm super happy with the way the Aspect Warriors look, and I'm really impressed with the way the totally unique and awesome Instagram tool works. And if you want to grab yourself a chip extractor and some sponges, I've left a link in the description to those tools on Amazon. They are affiliate links and they really help out the channel. And also, if this video has inspired you to paint any Eldar yourself, you need to grab some, or it's inspired you to use Hyrax Brown or Reliquary Red, there's links to them as well, because this video is powered by the Outpost and the Colour Forge. They sponsor the channel, they really support me, they provide space where I'm going to be making content from soon. It's where I run tournaments, which you can also grab tickets to in the description down below. There's loads of links, just have a nosy, and every link you look at, it directly supports me, so I really appreciate it. And I'm sure there's a few of you that are kind of saying, yo, Mikey, thanks for that, but where are the Striking Scorpions and Howling Banshees? Well, as I said, the Striking Scorpion I actually did a year ago, and it's up there, if you want to go watch that one. And Howling Banshees, well, I don't have any. What do you want me to say? Dab on bone, and then dab on lighter bone, then dab on lighter bone, then add a wash? I've just done that 4 times, I'm sure you can figure it out. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I just want to say a huge thank you for the big support on my Krieg video I did a few weeks ago. That one like got a lot of traction and it did really well, so I'm really chuffed with that one, and hopefully this one does similar. But if you like this style of video, please leave a like. I know everyone says leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment, but it does actually make a huge difference. YouTube works on engagement and watch time, so the longer you watch and the more you do down below, it's better for me. All right, it really helps me out, and it's literally free. And if you want to support me financially, you can become a member, like all of these beautiful people. Okay, these people get behind the scenes content, and they also directly support upcoming videos, like a really big one I'm working on right now. Okay, I've literally finished this one and I've already started the next one. I am unstoppable, and I'm also tired, but I will be less tired if your name was here. So thanks to the Outpost and Colour Forge sponsor the channel. Thanks to Games Workshop for the free models to show you and review to you. They're very nice, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.